Welcome to Auntie K's, your favorite radical queer indigenous auntie, bringing you tarot every day. All right, so I am a fan of reading reversals. I don't shuffle my cards to shuffle in reversals. I overhand shuffle, and I work with jumpers, and they just end up in all kinds of orders. And so really, that's why I read with reversals, because even if I'm not shuffling my cards so that half of them will end up in reverse, I still get lots of cards that are in that position, and they come out reverse or upright, and depending on how they jump. And so to me, that's just indicating to me on a personal level that, you know, there's other messages and ways to look at it. In my learning of tarot, I've learned the base knowledge of the cards is understood in, two systems now. And I've created my own interpretation from that. If you watch my channel, you know I talk about decolonizing the cards in how I interpret them. And I do that because they present to me a Eurocentric point of view that is not relevant to my life or the life of the majority of the people in the world. While we live under Eurocentered domination of Western civilization, that doesn't mean that that worldview is relevant to us, because that worldview harms the majority of us. So it's not a relevant or helpful or healthy way to read the cards. And so as an indigenous person to Turtle Island, which some of you call North America, I decolonize them. So in all of that, I've also learned the reversals. And if you're learning meanings, you'll get like, this is the, upright meaning, and this is the reverse meaning. My own guidebook is like, and this is the reverse meaning. And so you need to do more with it. And that's almost a good thing, because if you were to just take that one sentence in most guidebooks as your reverse meaning, you'd be limited and you'd be stuck in a rut every time a card came up in reverse. So reversals really push you to look at the card in a slightly different way. And when you take the upright meaning and think about where the reverse meaning is directing, you can, add more layers to that, most certainly. But that's not the only way I read reversals. So we're going to talk about that. So let's say we're pulling out a reading because Jane's wondering how, her date this evening might go, right? See? It just happens. So we have the 9 of Pence, the 9 of Swords. Oh, and we have the 2 of Pence. And, you, of course, are seeing this in a reverse order. This is Jane's date that they are going on. And we can see with the 9 of Coins here that this is a pretty bougie date that, the two are venturing out on. And I would advise Jane to get dressed up for this. Put on your best stuff. This is not going out to the club clothes. Get dressed up for it. That's what's going to make you comfortable in these settings and in these surroundings. Because this is this is bougier than what you were expecting. And, you know, you're going to have a great time. You're going to enjoy yourself, and you are going to let your worries fall away. And so when I'm reading them in reverse, I'm looking at the pictures primarily. In the Nine of Swords, I do see, them coming out of the head. And in this card particularly, it feels like the sun is rising from this situation. You might have been like really nervous at first, but the bouginess of the place is so comfortable that you're just letting it fall away and enjoying yourself, especially since you took my advice and got dressed up to the nines so that you feel like you belong there and you're really enjoying yourself. And those first date nerves are falling away and it feels great. But this Nine of Pence is a really high expectation to set for the first date. And this was done not to set a high expectation, but, that excitement of the first date. It was setting a high expectation, but the intentionality wasn't thinking through, this isn't something I can keep up. The Two of Pence. This high expectation, which wasn't necessarily set with that intent, but just the same was set, it's going to make it really hard for Jane and Jane's date to manage their finances with this expectation. And I think what I would advise is ease this, keep the good memory and the funness of this date real by inserting into the conversation that this date is an exception for that special first date and not the expectation. Because that feeling is going to be there unless Jane counteracts it by saying so. And that is going to have a negative impact on future dates. So that future dates are as wonderful and as enjoyable as this first date. Do not make this first date surrounding the expectations. Let the surroundings do what they did and take away the nerves of the first dateness by making it super fun and comfortable and something you were both just so excited to enjoy. And now that the nerves are over, more practical dates where you're not going to be able to hold on to your coins. You're both going to be dropping them. And so that's how I look at it. This is a pretty tame example that came out. It's pretty obvious. It's not too far off the book readings, right? But we're looking at the images in relation to the cards. And that's a large part of how I read reversals. The reversals might show that the person is moving in a different direction, right? Than they would have if they were upright. And that is sometimes to me the purpose of the reversal more than the actual meaning is, to show me like strength is moving away from being overwhelmed by your choices and thinking, oh, I need to have this and I need to have that. That's what's leaving you in this Seven of Cups situation in the first place. And if you turn away from it, then you are going to find your strength. And in finding your strength there, you are going to find the clarity of what it is you actually want and need. You're not going to have to choose from all the choices. You're just going to know what it is you have to go for. And so in this situation, this is a large part of how I see the reversals, not the reverse meaning. It's not that she and her lion are upside down. It's that by placing them upside down, they're facing away from it. Whereas, all right, so actually I want to show you this from my perspective. Sorry. So this was my perspective of it. So if this is in the other direction, that you're facing the Seven of Cups in this situation, and it creates a different feel to the reading. Whereas simply being in reverse, it gives the information more reading without me changing the meaning of the Strength card. So the meaning of the Strength card hasn't changed at all in this situation, but the direction that the characters are facing gives me the additional information that I need in the reading, to know, that strength is turning away from, I have to choose from all these things. I don't know what it is I really want, but I must want something. And strength is in turning away from that. And when you turn away from that, you're going to be able to figure out what it is you actually want. Reading reversals is like reading all the other cards in tarot. Except the point is driven home more. You can't get stuck in tarot in just the meaning assigned to that card in a particular book or a particular understanding, and never venture beyond that, regardless of what you see or what the situation is. Reversals is kind of like you only ever have a little white book. There's a sentence or so per guidebook, including mine, about the reverse meaning. And that would leave you with just essentially memorizing 78 new meanings. Because what else are you going to do with one sentence each? I suggest that the reverse meaning isn't necessarily all that important. What's really important is what you are seeing in the card and the interplay with the other cards and the question you are answering with the tarot. In some cases, what you're seeing might be very similar to a book meaning. That you're going to struggle to hold on to money is pretty in line with a book meaning. That's very much like struggling to maintain balance. But that's what I'm seeing when I see, this card in reverse. It looks like these coins are falling out of the person's hands. Whereas in the situation here, the person's upside down, and that may or may not actually make sense. But what I'm seeing is other traditional tarot clues, what this person is facing away from this object, this card, what's going on over here. They're facing away from it. And that's a tarot clue that I would use if the card was upright, except I'd say they were facing towards it. Here they're facing away from it. And so I'm still using all of Strength's regular upright meanings when I read this like this, because what was important and what seemed relevant was that they were facing away from this, I want. I can't choose because I don't actually know what I want. I just want something, which might not necessarily be exactly what the Seven of Cups is always about. But with these two cards together, that just makes sense in the moment. And essentially, that's about reading tarot. That's how we read tarot when we know it enough to be brave enough to move beyond, this is the meaning of this card. And it's the same with reverse, except that if you get into, this is the reverse meaning of this card, you're stuck in like one sentence. So you have to push beyond that. When it comes to reversals, I don't think you need to know the reverse meaning of the cards as much as you need to know the upright meanings. Because if you know the upright meanings, you can fathom how that might go wrong, reverse. Or what the, other side of that might be, what the negatives might be. But sometimes those aren't necessarily relevant to the reading. And so you use your other tarot skills that you pull together to add information into the reading. So you don't necessarily need the reverse one sentence-ish meaning that you're probably going to come across as much as you need those upright meanings as a bit of a foundation. Not going to knock intuitive folks. But whatever your understanding and interpretation of those cards is upright, that's probably more important than having a specific set of reverse understandings. And I think, for me anyways, pulling out what I'm seeing with my knowledge of how to read the cards is what makes the reversal make sense when it's there in the reading. You can also assign a meaning to cards coming up in reversal. And if you did that, I would maybe do it on the basis of the reading. Maybe not. Maybe it's just part of your various informations you're going to pull in. So you can decide, hey, I'm doing a protective reading, and upside down means it's not working out. Reverse means it's not working out. You can decide that reverse means a specific person that you or the querent is curious about, if they're going to show up in a reading. All right, if a card shows up in reverse, it symbolizes that person. Or it could symbolize you in the reading. If it's going to be people heavy and you want to be able to figure out who all the characters are, or you're querent, because maybe you would recognize yourself via cards that you assign to yourself. And in that way, if you assign certain cards to yourself, like I see myself as being very Knight of Wands, Queen of Swords. So if the Knight of Wands or Queen of Swords show up, I will frequently see them as myself within a reading. So then if it's in reverse, I often look at that as me not acting as myself. Whereas that's a strategy I then apply specifically to cards that I see as referencing me specifically and directly on a repeated basis. So those are various ways you can read reversals. And just as the more knowledge you bring in to your understanding about the world, increases your ability to read cards, because you simply know more things that these cards could be discussing. You know, likewise, including reversals, it includes additional information for you to be bringing out of these cards, which then improves your reading. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining me today. And I hope that you enjoyed this video. Let me know how you read reversals. Do you use them? What's holding you back if you don't use them? And yes, I'm going to phrase it that way. And, you know, do you have special meanings specifically that a reverse card means to you? Let me know in the comments or do a VR. And I will talk to you all later. Like, comment, and subscribe. And check out the description box if you would like to book a reading with me. Get a regular monthly package through Patreon. Follow me on Discord or on IG. See you all later, folks.